This, by far, has been the most difficult to manage during the search because you're having to check in with each team every 30 minutes and things come up. You have to go and talk to property owners who are upset that we're there.
I will have you charged for trespassing.
Do it!
This has been by far one of the more difficult ones to manage from a safety perspective. Now that I've been here, I'm even in my own mind trying to comprehend how it can be possible that these kids wandered off and they haven't been found. Especially after being in there and seeing all the flagging tape and hearing from all the property owners that we spoke with what the searching has been done. I'm having a really hard time fathoming that probability now that I've seen it for myself.
And what makes you say that?
Many things, but I think most importantly it is the amount of effort that search and rescue has put forward to try and find these kids and how quick they were able to start that process. I just find it more unlikely by the minute today that they had wandered. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's just I after seeing it, I can't understand how they wouldn't have been found that first day.
The disappearance of 2 young children in a quiet rural community has left investigators, volunteers, and the public searching for answers that have yet to emerge. Despite a rapid and coordinated response, extensive search efforts, and weeks of continued attention, the case remains unresolved. Now, a single unexpected discovery has reignited interest, raising questions, but not necessarily providing answers. From the outset, the search for Jack and Lily Sullivan presented significant challenges. Coordinating multiple teams across difficult terrain required constant communication and strict safety oversight. Search leaders were tasked with checking in regularly with different groups, managing logistics, and addressing concerns from local property owners whose land became part of the operation. It was not only a logistical effort, but an emotional and physical one. Those involved in the search have described it as one of the most demanding operations they have encountered. The difficulty was not just in covering ground, but in reconciling the absence of results. Even those experienced in search and rescue found themselves questioning what they were seeing, or rather, what they were not. After spending time in the search area, one coordinator admitted struggling to understand how 2 young children could have wandered off without leaving a trace. Given the scale and speed of the response and the thoroughness of the search, the lack of evidence became increasingly difficult to explain. While it remained possible that the children had simply wandered away, that explanation appeared less likely with each passing day. Jack Sullivan, 4 years old, and his 6-year-old sister Lily disappeared from their home in a rural part of Nova Scotia. The surrounding environment is characterized by dense woods, uneven terrain, and nearby waterways, conditions that can complicate both movement and visibility. In such areas, sound behaves unpredictably, distances can be misleading, and search conditions can shift rapidly. When the children were reported missing, authorities responded immediately. Search and rescue teams were deployed without delay. Trained dogs were brought in to track scent. Drones were launched to provide aerial coverage. Volunteers joined professionals in canvassing the area, examining paths, tree lines, and water edges. Anywhere 2 young children might have gone, intentionally or otherwise. The initial search was neither slow nor disorganized. It was wide-ranging, methodical, and urgent. Yet despite these efforts, nothing was found. There were no confirmed sightings, no items of clothing, no footprints, and no physical evidence that could establish where the children had gone. In cases involving young children, time is often the most critical factor. The sooner a search begins, the higher the chances of locating something that can guide investigators. That is what makes this case particularly unsettling. The response was swift, and the effort was extensive. Still, the landscape yielded no answers. As the days passed, the absence of evidence began to raise difficult questions. These were not accusations, but uncertainties. Could environmental factors alone account for the complete lack of trace? Or was there another explanation that had yet to surface? Investigators responded by expanding their approach. Timelines were reviewed, assumptions reassessed, and additional lines of inquiry considered. At the same time, certain details were withheld from the public, a standard practice intended to protect the integrity of the investigation. Public attention, however, does not operate under the same constraints. As official updates became less frequent, speculation began to grow. The lack of information did not reduce interest, it intensified it. Within the community, concern remained high. For many, the unanswered questions did not fade, they deepened. In response, a civilian-led search effort was organized. This initiative was not intended to replace law enforcement, but to support it. Volunteers worked under structured conditions, with an emphasis on safety and coordination. Groups were assigned specific areas. Check-ins were scheduled at regular intervals, and property owners were consulted before searches took place on private land. Participants were briefed on the risks, including difficult terrain, water hazards, and physical exhaustion. The emotional toll was also significant. Searching for missing children carries a different weight than most operations. Every step holds the possibility of discovery, but also the risk of disappointment. Despite these challenges, the search continued. Volunteers remained committed, not because they believed they had superior tools, but because they felt there was still more that could be done. Importantly, the effort was conducted in coordination with authorities. Any item considered potentially relevant was documented and handed over immediately. Our volunteers did not conduct independent investigations or draw conclusions. They followed established procedures. It was during one of these organized searches that an unexpected discovery was made. In a body of water downstream from the area where the children disappeared, volunteers located an object. At first glance, it appeared unremarkable, something that could easily be overlooked in a landscape where debris is common. However, upon closer inspection, the item raised enough concern to warrant attention. It was secured, and authorities were notified without delay. The object, described as a box, was handed over for further examination. At that stage, it was simply a potential piece of evidence. Nothing more, nothing less. The box had not been buried or deliberately concealed. It was submerged in water or exposed to natural elements such as current, weather, and time. This detail is significant. Objects found in water can travel considerable distances, carried by environmental factors far from their original location. When the box was opened, something inside drew immediate attention. Names had been written within it. That detail quickly elevated its perceived importance. However, those present at the scene refrained from speculation. The discovery was documented, and the item was transferred to law enforcement. Authorities took custody of the box promptly. Since then, they have not publicly disclosed its contents in detail, nor have they confirmed any connection between the item and the disappearance of the children. This lack of information has contributed to widespread speculation. For many observers, the fact that police retained the item suggested significance. However, in investigations of this nature, it is standard procedure to examine any object that could potentially be relevant. Items are not dismissed based on appearance, nor are they assumed to be critical without analysis. As of now, key questions remain unanswered. It is not known when the box entered the water, who placed it there, or whether the names inside have any connection to the case. These uncertainties leave the object in a neutral position. It is neither confirmed evidence nor dismissed as irrelevant. Despite this, public interpretation has moved quickly. Once the discovery became known, online discussions began to expand beyond what was confirmed. Questions about the box evolved into assumptions about its meaning. In some cases, the object was treated not just as a clue, but as a central piece of the narrative. This pattern is not unusual. In cases where information is limited, people often attempt to fill the gaps. Objects take on symbolic weight, becoming focal points for broader theories. Repetition reinforces these interpretations, and over time, speculation can begin to resemble certainty. However, proximity does not equal relevance. An object found near a location of interest is not automatically connected to the events in question. In many investigations, items are examined and ultimately ruled out, often without public announcement. The challenge lies in maintaining proportion. A single discovery, without verified context, cannot explain an entire case. It can raise questions, but it cannot answer them. As attention around the box increased, our focus also began to shift toward the family. Questions emerged regarding their public presence, their level of communication, and their responses to developments in the case. Such reactions are common in high-profile disappearances. There is often an expectation that families will behave in certain ways, speaking frequently, showing visible emotion, or engaging with the public. However, responses to trauma vary widely. Some families choose to remain visible, hoping to keep attention on the case. Others withdraw, overwhelmed by the situation or following guidance from authorities. In some instances, families are advised not to comment on ongoing investigations to avoid interfering with potential leads. It is important to recognize that behavior alone does not provide evidence. Silence is not an indication of guilt, and public engagement is not proof of innocence. Interpreting actions without context can lead to misunderstandings and misplaced suspicion. Law enforcement agencies often encourage restraint in public discourse for this reason. Speculation can create pressure, but it does not generate evidence. In some cases, it can complicate investigations by introducing noise that obscures meaningful information. At this stage, several facts remain clear. Jack and Lily Sullivan are still missing. The initial search was extensive and conducted promptly. No confirmed physical trace has been found. A box was recovered from a nearby waterway and is currently in the possession of authorities. No official connection between the box and the case has been established. Everything beyond these points remains uncertain. That uncertainty is difficult to accept. It invites theories, comparisons to other cases, and attempts to impose patterns where none may exist. However, each case unfolds within its own context, shaped by unique circumstances that cannot always be generalized. In investigations like this, patience is not passive. It is necessary. It allows for careful analysis, thorough examination, and the possibility of new information emerging over time. While the discovery of the box may prove relevant, it may also be determined to have no connection at all. Until further evidence is presented, it remains what it is, an unanswered question. For those following the case, the distinction between curiosity and conclusion is critical. Awareness can support an investigation, but assumptions can hinder it. The most reliable path forward remains grounded in verifiable information, and not interpretation. If there is one consistent principle in cases like this, it is that the truth does not emerge from volume or speculation. It comes from evidence, carefully gathered, tested, and confirmed. And for now, that truth remains unknown.